Okay, hello everyone. I may start. Welcome to the Kickstart presentation. Thanks for coming here. It worked well. It's quite full house. Nice. Yeah, I want to start. I want to quickly introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Vivan. I'm founder of the company called Lemonize. We are a small agency located in South Germany, in Ulm. We provide web solutions, do most of the time Magnolia projects with other partners. We have small customers for ourselves. We do Java EE development, also a little bit mobile development. Yeah, that's our mission. And today I'm gonna introduce our first product. It's a Magnolia-related product called Magnolia Kickstart. So in this presentation, I want to do some little introduction, what Kickstart actually is. I want to provide some motivation on why we created the product actually, what were the fundamental ideas. I want to explain the solution, how it works. Next, I want to show it in a live demo, that it works, if it works, how it works. Next, I want to discuss some benefits using the Kickstart approach of creating Magnolia sites. So why you might want to use it. I want to explain the usage, so how we intend that you can use actually Kickstart in your projects or for your projects. And I will show some roadmap, and hopefully we have some time for some Q&A session. Okay, so what's Kickstart? Kickstart is a tool to ease Magnolia development. So that's our claim. We want to make Magnolia development a little bit faster and a little bit easier with less pain for the developer. So let's have a quick look on what Magnolia development actually means, so what a typical Magnolia development process looks like. So in a typical project, we have phases like concept, design, implementation phase, deployment phase, and documentation, or after deployment things. So we are now focusing the implementation phase. So in here we call it in or also our partners do so, like front-end development, where we have HTML, CSS, JavaScripting in there. So to create a static prototype, this is handed over to the backend developers who do Java coding, Magnolia setup, and things like that. And then we often have a testing team that checks everything and verifies if the others did the correct job. So front-end development typically is quite simple to set up, so it's pretty lightweight development. You don't have to set up an application server. You can just use your web editor, load it in the browser, refresh, and see everything. So that's pretty much lightweight. In contrast, backend development requires a full-blown Maven project when working with Magnolia deployment, or even hot deployment. So that's not so easy to set up. The typical development process, the daily business, if you want, of Magnolia developers looks like: first, the front-end developers create the HTML, CSS, JavaScript code. They hand it over to the backend developers, which in turn identify the pages, components, and stuff in the static HTML. They continue creating template definitions for the components they identified. Typically, this happens by copying, pasting nodes from, say, the SDK, for example, or existing nodes, and editing them. They create template scripts, so they again copy-paste what they find in the static prototype and take it over to the free marker snippets. They implement model classes. They create dialog definitions. Again, since it's quite tedious to do, they copy-paste that stuff from, again, maybe the SDK and edit it. You have to create sample content that you really can see if what you did matches the front-end prototype. And well, in the end, especially if it comes to changes, you have to align the HTML and template and dialogs definitions with your static prototype again. Well, and I think everyone did it when we were starting developing with Magnolia. Don't forget to export your Bootstrap files, otherwise If you clean your instance, all your work is gone. So don't forget that. Once the backend team is finished and deploys it to a testing environment, the testers come into play and verify really if the backend matches the front end. And if there's something wrong, the cycle goes once again. And this is what happens when you have changes in the, for example, by the design team. You do it in the front end prototype, and the backend developers have to identify the changes and have to redo them in the backend code again. Okay, so we see some problems, in my opinion, with this approach, with the current development approach we have to take with Magnolia. First thing is we have a quite complex setup. So to develop with Magnolia, we actually need a Maven project, we need an application server, and we need hot deployment or deployment. This is quite time-consuming to set up, actually. Even for small projects, you actually have to do this bunch of setup. And it's something, if you really do it well, it's something for experts only, actually. So you can make many things wrong. So in this stage. Next thing, I called it SDK Deficits. I'm sorry for those who are the SDK fans here. In my opinion, so working as proposed with the HTML prototype is quite hard, since the prototype is quite large. So we have around 40 HTML files, like 17,000 lines of code. We have 1.8 megabyte of JavaScript in there. We have 8,800 lines of CSS code in there. So if you try to start with it, it's quite hard to get where to start. What can I get rid of, or do I have to take it all, or I don't know how to do it really. And I think there are only few people around who actually are experts enough to do this. So this is really something for experts. And the same is true for the SDK templating. So what all the time happens again, like copying, pasting free market code, but once you have to replace something in the SDK code, you actually come up with duplicating the entire class file and of your model class, for example, to fix just one line in the private method or something like this. And in the end, this results in being quite hard to maintain or difficult to maintain. So this is the second problem. Third problem, I called it configuration overkill. So I think you all know this. I mean, creating dialog definitions in Magnolia 5 didn't get so much easier. The tree is much more usable, but we have to create more and more nodes. So creating dialog and template definitions is really tedious, and it's error prone, since you don't know which properties I can fill in. So you have to really know Magnolia very well on doing this right again. And it's time consuming, and it's actually just stupid, tedious, annoying work for us developers to do. Okay, and the fourth problem I want to discuss, we termed it the front-end, back-end development break. This is the most important problem I see, actually, which is like if we have a change in your static prototype, you have to mirror the same change in your backend code. And here many problems actually occur, or many errors occur. So you have to synchronize both sources, and you make errors in there. And it's also some kind of work that actually you don't want it to do, but you have to because there's no other way. Okay, so we saw quite a few problems. How could we solve them? We with Magnolia Kickstart have maybe some kind of approach that works pretty well in here. So meet Magnolia Kickstart. The fundamental idea of Magnolia Kickstart is that you actually work in your static prototype, and the idea is to generate the Magnolia artifacts from your static prototype. So how does this work? So in your HTML code, the idea is to embed Kickstart markup, and from this markup, magically, all the Magnolia artifacts are generated. That's a fundamental idea. So the static prototype will be the single source of truth, we call it, during your development. So everything you need for creating the template definitions is right in the static prototype. So You have only one source to maintain. There's no synchronization problem in here, at least not if you have basic projects, or at least as long as you can use Kickstart. So how does the code look like? So this here you see the basic tags, the basic Kickstart markup tags. For example, you have the page tag to create a page template definition. You have a field tags to provide or to designate editable content in your templates, in your static prototype file. You have tags to designate areas, components, and in there you have fields. So this looks pretty simple actually, and as you will see in the online demo, it gets even simpler. And now what Kickstart actually does is creating from this markup, creating template definitions. It generates all the nodes in there, like areas, navigations in there. It creates your dialogues definitions containing your fields that you define. And it even creates your template scripts. So you don't have to do this manually. There's no manual step in there if you don't want this to. And the best, we are trying to make it natural templating-like. So these Kickstart tags you fill into your static prototype won't break your design actually. So your front-end developer still can use CSS and use inspection tools provided by the browsers to actually edit or inspect the source code. So it won't break. And we have even more tags. So we have, for example, some higher level tags if you want, for example, something like navigation to create dynamic navigations. You see here the Kickstart navigation tag that does exactly this, and this creates a free marker script or a snippet that actually renders your navigation. Later on, you can also modify the navigation script if you want. So you're free to do this. And again, also this notation gets even simpler, as I will show in the demo. So by using convention over configuration, you can even save providing Kickstart tags at all, which is quite cool. Okay, what are the consequences of this approach if it works? So if it works, it's really killer speed, as you will hopefully see if the demo works. You will see the changes instantly, so creating or modifying your static prototype will automatically, instantly apply to your Magnolia instance. Yeah, you don't have to do all the boilerplate of creating the definitions and template scripts. And well, in the end, you are in sync. So your backend code really matches the front-end code, byte by byte or bit by bit. Okay, I think it's time for some demo. So I switch to my Magnolia instance is running, so that you trust us. Okay, here we go. So I will first show you, well, log in again. Super user. So I will first show you that we don't have actually any template in there. So it's an empty blank instance. And the goal is now we have the static prototype. Here you see the static prototype that we are going. This is nothing in there. You can't click something here. It's not editable yet. This is our static prototype demo source. And we want to transform this into a fully manageable Magnolia website. So see how this works. What I do is the source code here is in, as you can see, in the resources workspace of Magnolia. What I do is mounting the file or the resources workspace into my local Finder. So I did this. Here's the cloud instance. And well, this takes a while, but hopefully it's already there in IntelliJ in our IDE. So here we mounted the resources workspace. And what you see here is the base HTML code we just saw. This is the source of our static prototype. Okay, so now let's start creating some template definition. What I need to do is providing some XML namespace declarations here so that Kickstart, the compiler, knows our tags. So creating a page is actually as simple as providing a name, say base. What I do now is save. Quickly check everything went well. I return to my Magnolia instance, refresh the app, and hopefully if everything has gone right, I have my base template here. Let's see how this looks. I open the page and it already looks the same. Well, in here still everything is static, so let's make it a little bit more dynamic, maybe by adding a main area, turning this one into an editable navigation for now. So what we do is locate the area tag. We want to have the article here as area, call it main. We have the header field in here. We want to make it editable, like headline. You see we have markup in here, so we have to tell Magnolia to decode actually what we put into the field there. I just will copy this. I will wrap this with a Kickstart placeholder, say decode true. Okay, let's save this. Go back to Magnolia, refresh your browser, and there's our main area. So you see instant changes here. I can do this live. There it is. Okay, we continue by turning these ones into components. Say we want to make a text image component here. So return to your IDE, locate the right tags. We have to wrap this again with Kickstart components. Now we want these three elements here to wrap in a component. So provide Kickstart component, name text image. So let's quickly do some formatting. Like this. Okay. So now we want this should be an editable asset. So simply provide asset name, image. This shall be a headline. Field name headline. And this shall be a rich text editable field called text. So to make it rich text editable, I have to specify a different class here. So rich text field definition class. Okay, I will quickly copy this code, save this, refresh your browser, add a new component, and there's text image. So select an asset, and it renders the same result. Choose this. Try it like this maybe. Isn't better. Okay, I don't care for now. Just that they see it's really rich text. Here's our, well, I think you can't see it very well. It's styled differently. Here's our rich text component. Okay, so we continue. We want to map this one, the link, to another component, so it gets even simpler. Like creating a component without the Kickstart component tag. We want to make the href attribute of the link editable, So what we need to provide a field for this. So we will do Kickstart field name link. In order to select things from the Pages app, we need to provide some additional configuration to the field. And at runtime, so when it's a free marker script, you want to use a different href attribute, like making it dynamic, like this. And finally, what we want to do is editing the links label. So we do field name link label. Here we go, refresh. Create a new component. There is not our link. What did we do wrong? Oh, I think I missed reloading the app, right? Magnolia is not picking up the changes. There's the link. Select something from the home page. And here we go. Save. There it is. Okay, so far so good. But what did we map yet? So we have not yet a navigation in here, a dynamic navigation. So we will also map this using Kickstart. Give me a minute. So I locate the Kickstart, the navigation tag in here. You see this is our HTML nav tag. It looks pretty conventional if you want. So we took this convention. You simply specify an ID, call it main, save, refresh. There is the navigation. So that you trust me again. Duplicate. Here we go. And it's editable. So we just created what you see, Magnolia website, made it editable in, I think, about 7 minutes. So. Thank you.
Hi, this
is the backup. Okay, I think I have even time for some little game. Maybe, is there anyone that wants to have another T-shirt of ours? Okay, there are a few. So, guess how much time did it take to perform the transformation? Give me seconds or milliseconds if you want. One of those who wants a T-shirt, just put a guess.
200 milliseconds.
That's quite near. Are you the only one? Other submissions? Okay, you are closest, Richard. What's your size? It's actually 0.3 seconds, so it's quite fast. It's quite immediate. So we will make it afterwards, okay? I have a few left, so I have some other questions prepared. So it takes not even a second to actually generate all Magnolia artifacts at once and bootstrap them within Magnolia. So it's really like just switching your browser. It really works instantly. So you save in your editor, switch to your browser, refresh, and it's really there. So it's really instant. And you saw we didn't do the boilerplate, so we just skipped copy pasting at all. And well, in the end, you're in sync. So your backend frontend matches actually. So you have one source to maintain with Kickstart tags in there. And you have just one thing to maintain. Okay, so what's the reason why you want to use this tool? So the symbols already explain. You save time, you save money, and you and maybe your boss will be happy. So first reason to use Kickstart is actually your projects are custom. So Kickstart really accepts that your projects are, you use your own components, you use your own frameworks in the front end, for example, like Twitter Bootstrap or jQuery, whatever you want. And you only maintain what you really use and what you really need for creating your your site. Actually, you don't maintain thousands of code that you actually don't need with the SDK, for example. So it's quite fast to develop. It's quite efficient, and it's even easier to maintain. So that's why you might want to use Kickstart. Reason 1. Reason 2, it saves you a lot of time and it saves you really a lot of money in the end. So this is really a Kickstarter, and which is way more efficient. So since we generate all the Magnolia artifacts, you don't have to do this manually. By this, you make less errors, and even your testers are more confident after a while that really both works together. So it's more efficient and again easier to maintain. Well, and I hope you developers will love it in the end. So you don't have to do the boilerplate, copy-pasting too much nodes in the admin central. We can get rid, hopefully at some point, of the copy-paste and modify pattern we apply every day. And it's way faster than before. Okay, so how to use Kickstart actually? Well, we plan actually to use, or to enable you to use Kickstart in different ways. First way is, as you would expect it, to use it locally using Maven. So as with your current development process, Kickstart will integrate quite well. So it will be another either Maven module or Magnolia module that you can plug in and use the Kickstart locally. But we also realized that the setup is quite complex. So the Maven installation and all that stuff works quite well for Magnolia experts, but it doesn't work so well for developers, for newcomers to Magnolia. We want to ease the entry barrier to get Magnolia actually. We want to ease this dramatically. That's why we are intending to create a Kickstart development cloud. So, and the idea of the development cloud is to make Magnolia projects with zero setup actually. That we set up your Magnolia instance, we maintain your Magnolia instance, and you only maintain your static prototype without doing all the plumbing of setting up. And why Kickstart scales? So the idea is that if you don't want to work you can start in the cloud, and once you get more proficient and more into Magnolia, if you get an expert, you can check out the project and continue working locally. So it's just Kickstart your project here. So how can this look like? So as a web developer with no Magnolia skills, or say no Magnolia skills, you create an account in the Kickstart cloud, and Kickstart will maintain your Magnolia instance. You have their templating libraries, why not SDK even, also in the future, Kickstart templating maybe. And then the idea is to check out, as I did, the static prototype to the local machine so that it can work locally on the static prototype. And so this is something a web developer can do. He can add the Kickstart markup and use HTML, CSS to design a site. And either he works locally with a web editor, or you can also use, well, maybe not for full-time development, the Magnolia provided tools for editing files in the resources. So if you want more, if you want to get out more, you get a Magnolia Beginner, so with basic Magnolia know-how, or maybe you want to have it something more dynamic. You can actually also do locally like some kind of scripting. So you add Groovy scripts, for example, locally, or you can even edit you can check out the templating workspace from Magnolia, and you can even edit your templates locally. But you still, once you save your files, so your changes will be transferred to the cloud instance, which is running, and it picks up your changes, and once you refresh again, you see your changes there. So here you can also maybe use a more advanced IDE like WebStorm, for example, or also your browser. And again, if you're a Magnolia experts, as most of you are probably, you will be able to use Kickstart locally. So you run Magnolia Instance locally, deploy it to an application server, and use your IDE you're used to, like Eclipse or IntelliJ, yeah, and develop locally as you are used to. Okay, what could be use cases for using the Kickstart cloud? So especially if it's, as I will show in a minute about the roadmap, even with the alpha version, so it's not yet online, so that's why you have to register. Once it's online, we will inform you that you can test it, so it's coming quite soon. The process is like you register at Kickstart, you create your site, and at that time we will start a Magnolia instance for you. So I'm looking forward to deploy this in the cloud, as we heard before, for example, JElastic, something like this. We create and maintain an instance for you. You start with a static prototype. This can happen, like, for example, either you upload your static prototype as a zip file, or you choose a predefined template. For example, you can start with the SDK, for example. Or you even download an existing site statically using wget from the web. So that could also be an option. Then next step is, again, to check out, to check out locally. Using WebDAV, then you add your Kickstart markup, edit your resources, and this is a regular Kickstart Magnolia development process. So, and once you're finished, you can decide, well, either you want to publish your changes, for example, template definitions, etc., to publish this to an external instance. So if you have Magnolia running somewhere in production deployment, you can just activate those changes to the running instance. Or you can check out the project as a Maven project to run it locally or to continue working on it locally. So you get all full Magnolia project, so Maven project with best practices installed already, so you can really start developing there. Or you can also decide to check out as a WAR file, and then this WAR file is ready to deploy, so you just put it in your production infrastructure, Tomcat, and run it. Well, and if you decide to come back to Kickstart, you just log in again and edit your static prototype again and do the whole process once more, a few times more. Okay, for this, especially for the cloud instance, maybe it's not, if you have a larger project, maybe you can use the cloud for creating the instance or the project, or to bootstrap it. But there are other use cases where you actually don't want to have that complex setup actually after all. So for example, if you're preparing for pitch presentations, you can really use the Kickstart cloud to prepare for the pitch in just, say, a few hours. But you don't have to set up a full-blown Magnolia instance. Or to create and launch microsites or landing pages, something like this. Something that's really not actually feasible if you have to set up an entire project, actually, if you have smaller projects, something like this. Or as I told before, like bootstrapping or checking out a large project, like starting it. Or you can even use Kickstart actually, well, to learn Kickstart itself. You can just go in and try. But you also learn Magnolia actually, because you can have a look at what Magnolia actually generated. If we have time left, I can also show you what I missed actually in the demo to show you what we actually generated. Yeah, and you can use this to actually learn developing Magnolia. Okay, so what's the status of the project? We are currently preparing for this demo an incubation version, if you want. We are quite close to launching the alpha version, which is what you're registering for. So once you submit or once you register on Kickstart.io, we will inform you once the cloud instance is ready, so that you can play around with Kickstart and give it a shot. So this will be an exclusive preview for those guys that are here and that are registering with the promo code inside. So please go ahead. Later this year, we want to actually release a beta version, so which is also we want to provide it to customers who want to use it locally, so that you can test with it locally, and probably we will align it with the changes going on in Magnolia 5.4 already. So I'm looking forward to integrate this. And then early next year, we hope to release the first version really that is really supported and that you can really use in production. And well, in the future, there are many ideas around. If you have even more ideas, just tell us what we can do. So we have already planned some integrations, for example, with Dropbox, that you can just maintain your static prototype files in a Dropbox folder, because it's even more instant since you have the file really locally and you have backup you can share in a team, so it's quite nice actually. We want to improve tooling actually, if you want to make an Eclipse support even better, something like this. So please register on Kickstart.io and stay in touch with us. I would be I would like this. And finally, I want to spend some word and say thank you. Thank you for being here, for you being here. I also want to say thank you to my teammates. So you do a really great job, especially also the Esense guys who support us developing the cloud instance. And I also want to take the chance, since it's quite late at the conference, to thank the Magnolia team for preparing this conference again. It's quite a great event, and I'm quite happy to be here and part of this community. Thanks very much.